want or preferred not to have a specific date. Have the employment of everybody pushed back. I'm just curious how the executive director feels about that.
Okay, like to respond?
I think really that discussion is for the board members to review and consider. I may have my opinions, but this is a resolution that is before you, the Oversight Board.
And to add to that, I think we should be mindful as the Oversight Board that any intent to extend the MOU changes that ROPS payment. So for instance, the EOP that was approved and adopted by the agency reflected certain work plan through March 31st. So anything beyond that changes that. And we don't want to be in a position where we're making some changes that will potentially increase that recognized obligation payment schedule that would cause the entire schedule to be in flux. So what we have before us, I'm comfortable with. I think we've discussed where the board wants to go in terms of urging the city to at least help place some of these employees. In addition to that, just having the dialogue in terms of 30 days or up to the fiscal year is heard, it's public. So by just having this deliberation, I think clearly stated our intent.
Through the chair, I was also wondering, it sounded like the meeting on Thursday is a negotiation session. And I'm wondering if there's going to be individual notification to employees beyond the layoff notices that they receive that will notify them individually about whether they are plan to stay or their positions.
My understanding through the DHR process, and I'm at the edge of my knowledge base here, notification letters for layoff were issued to staff, and to the extent any layoff notices are specifically rescinded, that process will take place.
Governor Sweet.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just out of curiosity, I heard what Nanya said about putting our ROPS and OPS in a state of flux if we were to do anything different. But has anyone or has there been any kind of study report done to show what it would do to the payment schedule if we were to extend it the additional 3 months? I mean, what would it cost the city, the successor agency, or whoever's going to pay? What would it cost to go for the additional 3 months? Because the way I see it, if we're looking at this payment schedule anyway, it's going to change over the course of the years. I mean, it's not going to ever stay the same. So, yeah, we put it in flux now, okay, but we don't know what it's going to cost. Well, I don't know if we know what it's going to cost. That's my question to you.
As I indicated earlier, with respect to the obligations, we have 3 sources: developer reimbursable, any other sources that may be available to us, whether that's lease revenue or something else, and the administrative cost allowance. That analysis is being undertaken, verifying those sources, and some of that involves consultation with our development partners if we wish to deviate from those contracts, which would involve a renegotiation. We are verifying those sources. Right now, we are living within the box of the sources that we have. So that analysis for those obligations, again, before any staff program is put forward, it's important to have a good understanding of those sources, and we expect to have that by Thursday.
If we just use the knowns that we have, meaning we already know what comes in and what's stable, what would it cost for an additional 3 months? What would it cost to extend these employees until June 30th?
I can't speak to that particular number, Board Member Sweet, at this time.
Is there any way we can find out that number? Because it really does affect how we look at this. I mean, if we're looking at some astronomical number that we know we can't fit into a box, then fine. But if we're looking at a number that's palatable to everyone, it might be worth taking that extra 3 months for this transitional phase. And I guess just knowing the number would be helpful to me, knowing the bogey we're trying to hit. How can we find that number?
I think I acknowledge.
One thing we do know.
Well, I didn't get an answer, so.
No, this will give you part of the answer. We know that it's not going to cost a dime to keep the people that are going to stay anyway. That all we're talking about is the difference between those that are going to stay and those that aren't going to stay. So it's the cost of those that aren't going to stay for 3 months.
Smaller number.
So it is a smaller number. And on that, I was kind of curious. There was a speaker that reminded me that everybody was funded through the fiscal year prior to the dissolution of the redevelopment agency, and how that came through the chair to the executive director, how that plays into who's paying for the people if they were to be kept on past the June 30th date.
I can confirm, but can I just try to attempt to address that question? So my understanding is the budget was adopted through the fiscal year 2012. It was adopted prior to the governor's bill, AB 27. What has happened over the dissolution of RDA? What is happening as part of that budget, there were other things that were also included that the agency hasn't been able to act on. So including issuance of debt and other things to just continue their day-to-day activities. So in as much as it was adopted, my understanding is that there's certain things that are not being, that they can't be fulfilled as a result of the AB 27. But I can defer to the director to elaborate more on that.
Chair Sisa, your summary is correct. Yes, the board did adopt a budget, and the mayor signed a budget last year, but the world has changed. The agency has dissolved, and there are different rules on a move-forward basis that the city as successor agency must abide by as it moves forward.
Board Member Mosca?
So I still haven't got my answer, so again, I'm just asking for a number, how we can get it.
It seems like on the enforceable obligation sheet, I think the amount of the personnel per month was about 1.2 million. Is that correct, or something of that nature? So we know it's somewhere between whatever personnel we anticipate keeping, which that's the unknown that we will learn later in the week, and 1.2 million per month.
Is that it?
Yes, there was on the ROPS, or rather on the preliminary ROPS that was provided to the Department of Finance, and on the 6th Amendment enforceable obligation schedule, there was a personnel item pursuant to the terms and conditions of existing MOUs. There is an average monthly cost that's associated with that, so the incremental difference is the total cost. There's an incremental difference between keeping everyone on board for that period and any potential reduction in staff.
Maybe Board Member Lee, please.
Through the chair. Jimmy, could you just explain to me is it the salary and the load and all the other, so is that number of $1.2 million strictly salary, or is it all the other obligations related to the retirement system and the healthcare system, and the other load, or is it just strictly salary? Is that 1.2 number strictly salary? And if it's not in the ROPS, who would take that?
So the 1.2 per month is strictly salary. It doesn't include any potential other liabilities associated with that. So the 6-month total for the ROPS included a salary and benefits figure of about 6.4. So as Board Member Wayback indicated, approximately, it's approximately over $1 million per month to keep as is.
Through
through June.
What members do you have?
So I thought it might be helpful to do a process check, because I know some people have to leave. I think the planning director has to leave, but prior to.
So, yes, so can we open up for public comment? Oh, thank you. And as you know, this is a special meeting, so I'm gonna try to limit this to a maximum of 2 minutes per public speaker. So, Madam Secretary, do you have any cards, and how many?
I have 15 cards, Madam
Can you
Chair,
call 5 at least?
and I will call your names 5 at a time. Please come up and be ready to speak. The first speakers, Janet, Melanie, Steve, and Lalemi, Leela May, I'm sorry, of the San Francisco Conservation Corps.
I'll try to make this fast. Good afternoon, Oversight Board.
You're the mic.
Good afternoon, Oversight Board members. I'm actually here to talk about the workforce component and not the big 5 projects. The redevelopment agency actually funded us through the Job Readiness Initiative for the past 2.5 years. These funds have allowed us to hire 2 base managers and a post-diploma teacher with the intent of serving young adults from the Bayview, Hunters Point, and Visitating Valley by removing barriers and helping them get prepared for opportunities in advanced training and or post-secondary education. Prior to receiving these funds, we actually didn't have case management on board, nor did our young people believe that they had the ability to get enrolled in post-secondary education. The staff from the redevelopment agency provided SFCC not only with the funding, but allowed us a springboard to develop more comprehensive services for all the young people that serve, and not just in those 2 specific zip code areas. Some of the examples, for post-secondary education, prior to receiving the funds, we had just 2 young people enroll in post-secondary education. To date, since funding, we've got over 30 young people who are enrolled in post-secondary education. I've got a staff member who will go ahead and talk about the barrier removal processes. The JRI staff, in particular, Christina Garcia and Astrid Zanitha,